Everybody, we're going to call the meeting to order. Hi, Mike.
Hi, nice to meet you.
You too. If you're not here, you don't have to do this.
These are two.
Hey, Bill, how are you?
Yes, it is.
Good, how are you?
Good.
The access road doesn't. They must be coming off this, yes, because.
So
this
we're
road
just
stops here
looking at
now.
the maps right
How
now.
they're getting over to here, this road doesn't exist. But here-
Before we get into this, let's do the business part of our meeting here.
This is the road. coming
Okay,
off
so
of
we
Reed
need
Road.
a motion to accept minutes and.
This must be
Correct.
the building.
I make a motion.
It's not there now, so-
Second motion for the minutes. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, gentlemen, who would like to speak to this project?
I would like to start.
Okay.
So first, I'd like to
Mike.
introduce myself. My name is Mike Fingar from US Light Energy. I'm joined here tonight by Bill Sparkman, our project engineer for this property, as well as our sales director, Lee Evans, who's just participating virtually. So my company, US Light Energy, is a solar developer located in Latham, New York. We're just north of Albany. We've been in the space for about a decade with a focus on community solar since 2016, developing a few projects in the Lewis County and Jefferson County area, including a completed project in Saratoga County, New York, near our office. We are community solar developers, and for those that aren't familiar with community solar is a large group of panels installed in an ideal location. And by an ideal location, I mean one that is suitable to physically install these panels, generally large cleared area. It doesn't require a lot of earthwork to facilitate these racking designs. That's one of the items I'll get into in a minute, is show you how these are actually installed on these types of properties. But in addition to that, one of the most important pieces for us is the utility infrastructure. And this location on Mead Road actually has an ideal interconnect location for us. We've recently received approval from National Grid for the to connect this system to the utility grid. Community solar, by being a large group of panels installed in an ideal location, allows us to effectively generate clean energy. The community aspect of it comes into play because that energy that we produce becomes available to the community. Ideally, that's as close to the property as possible, but it can be anybody with the same utility territory account. In this case, that's National Grid. So the electricity generated on site here at this project, which is a 5 megawatt AC system, generally will generate enough electricity in a year to power about 500 to 600 homes annually. And those can be participants in the local community. That's based on a residential system size, a residential household consuming anywhere from 12,000 to 15,000 kilowatt hours a year. So that can change based on who actually signs up. But the beauty of community solar is it's not just for residential customers. It can be for small businesses or large businesses, or municipal buildings can also participate in the energy that the system produces.
Let me ask you a quick question right here. Do you have anybody signed up yet?
We do. I actually participate in the solar project we built in Saratoga County on Sugar Hill Road, which I brought some pictures tonight I'd love to share of what the completed project looks like, also what it may look like in progress. So I personally participate in that one. That is fully subscribed, as well as our project in Denmark, New York, the town of Denmark. That is also fully subscribed at similar size. All of the other projects I mentioned are currently in construction and not yet connected to the utility grid. But prior to being connected, they will be fully subscribed.
Okay.
And when I mentioned earlier too about the electricity generation and where we'd like that power to go, ideally we'd like to sign up residents in Canton to participate in this array. However, if space remained available, that is eligible to anybody's eligible with an electric account with National Grid in this case.
Questions yet?
So this is a direct connect to the grid.
Yes.
This is not, there's no storage, there's no battery stuff, there's no whatever. It's like a net system, like a net credit system.
Is there storage involved at all?
There's not, and I'd like to speak to those comments. I can hear some of them.
Okay,
So if I missed anything, please let me know. But this system is proposed to connect to National Grid's existing distribution network. That'll be served by a primary service that is installed solely for this project. And the energy that's generated on site will be exported to the grid, essentially banking those credits on a large account that we then allocate to any customers that sign up. So there is no direct connection to any of our participants. So for instance, we're not running wires from this site to anybody that's receiving the energy. One connection point, and there will be a meter recording how much energy is produced on that property going out to the utility grid, which we then allocate to various customers. One benefit of, if I may, just one benefit of community solar as well is there is no long-term commitment. So contrary to what you may see on a residential system or even a small commercial system, there's usually a large expense to have that installed and some level of commitment for 5 to 20 years to have that on your property. In this case, other than the facility being sited on the property, as far as the participants go, there is no long-term commitment. Generally, those are pretty short-term, and in some cases, month to month, that you're able to opt out or cancel at any time that you don't feel you're receiving the value for your subscription.
Okay. So if the lines go down somewhere, it's National Grid's problem to divert your power somewhere.
That's correct. And as far as our system affecting the service to anybody's home or business in the surrounding area, that remains the same. That will still be serviced by National Grid. Our account will be it will be also serviced by National Grid. It's just a primary service that is installed for the property. So we're not connecting to anything that's currently on site. They would be building a dedicated service for this project by itself. And that has already been approved and by National Grid for this specific location.
Okay. Good. Anything yet?
If you go over the setbacks of the land and where are the neighbors?
Yeah, we're gonna look at the location now, I guess. So so we know where the property is and where the 161 Mead Road is, and looking at the internet mapping, we know who the neighbors are. What's your access to this piece of land?
So right now we're currently proposing to go through the end of the existing road, which is how I assume the property is accessed currently without being a landlocked parcel, unless I'm mistaken on that.
I do not know. There was some speculation that road belonged to the people that own the body shop right there, but I had always thought it was not a private road. Town maintains it. Okay. Yeah.
So our current proposal would be to pick up where that road ends and continue on with an access road to that parcel.
Okay.
And that would have to be coordinated between our company and that adjacent property owner. I would want to make sure. Go ahead.
I don't know that you're going on anybody else's property at the end of that road, right?
Not planning to.
Yeah, it doesn't look like you would need to. What's that?
What's the setback from the road?
The solar panels are roughly in the middle of that property.
That's correct. And I would like to speak to that for a moment, and then maybe Bill, you can support me on some of the considerations we took in the design. Generally, we try to install these with as little impact to the existing property as possible. And by that, I mean, we try to avoid areas that would require mass grading. We don't like to do a lot of earthwork for these. And I have some pictures I'd like to present in addition to this site plan of a project that's in progress and one when it was completed. But generally, we like to avoid mass grading of the site and tree removal wherever possible. If you can see the contours here, that is what drove this design in the majority, but there also are some considerations of being close to the interconnection point. And that's to avoid electrical losses from when the panels are generating to where we have to export our energy to the grid.
So let's see, if we're looking at,
There's no property lines close by, is that correct?
Can somebody take me to this, take me from Russell Road to this place?
you know where Boyden Brook Body Shop is?
Yeah.
Right there.
That's there.
Where?
You know where the road goes down past the body shop?
Body shop?
And Jim Rose's house? These people are off to the, they're off to the left.
That's the body shop. And this is
Yeah.
Jim's
So it's just right at the
Oh, okay,
curb.
so what's
See
the
right at the
idea?
curb? Is it the only curb to go
Got it.
out
No, I
and
know
go
it.
straight to the body shop? The body shop is right
I
there
got it.
and it's just past the body shop.
If you stay on that road, that you drive into the body shop, that's down the road that they're talking. I am orientated. Thank you.
So that last picture you just showed us,
Yeah, see, look up here.
Mike, was just the parcel itself. This is a better picture, yeah. So this is well off the Mead Road. So that road where your cursor is right there past the house is where you're planning to access.
We'd extend from that road to the interior of the site. And this is
Okay.
kind of where we're staying.
We probably should have a conversation with Calvin, maybe Jeff. See if that is a town maintained road and if there would be any hiccups there. Just gonna run something by the town supervisor to make sure that you are clear with that.
Yeah, we'd be happy to work with them on any kind of, verification of the existing road or any requirements you would have for an extension related to that.
For the only residents.
We would prefer to keep that road as private as possible, for that project.
Yeah, I would say the limited access would be.
Okay.
So the only neighbor is Rose.
That
The only neighbor, the only resident.
would be the roses, correct. There's nobody, you see this little strip of green land right here? I believe this is Wayne Strip.
Uh-huh.
It comes all the way from 68.
Want me to zoom out a little bit?
Yeah, please. Yeah, I think this little tiny strip is Wayne Strips.
Right, and, oh, I
If
see
you go to,
68,
if any of you use the Dank Internet mapping site, if you go to that, you can do property lines, property owners.
Yep, we did that to develop the ag data statement. So we pulled up all the adjacent property owners.
Okay. I believe that driveway is owned by the Cooperative Extension. Late breaking information for you.
Yeah, it crosses through their
Yeah.
property. That makes sense.
They have almost all the land around that is Cooperative Extension comes all the way back behind Boyden Brook. Okay. It's Brian, who's the brewer?
Yep. So our intent would be to work with the owner of that road to formalize our access for this particular property if Mr. Brewer doesn't already have that in place.
Yeah, I can't answer that.
Yeah, we would look into that and research that.
What is there plan B?
Well, currently this is not a landlocked parcel, right? It was created with there's some access to the property.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, I guess a conversation with Cooperative Extension would be useful.
Understood. Yep. So I will review that as well as with Mr. Brewer and solidify our access and describe that to the board as a follow-up. But again, sticking with that same spirit of trying to minimize our disturbance, our proposal right now is to extend the end of the existing road to connect into our property, keeping that distance as short as possible, not only to minimize the disturbance associated with the road, but also to get us closer to that interconnection point to export the energy.
Correct. So where on the property are your panels going to be? Just
Bill, do you actually have a satellite image with the panels overlaid?
I don't believe so. Not one that's been cleaned up that we can really show. But I mean, if you're looking at the satellite image right here from Google Earth, the majority of the panels is going to be within that existing ag field, which you can see, you know, kind of highlighted in brown. A little bit of the corner of the array will be within that wooded tree area to the north, and that's going to be yeah, a little farther up north. Yeah, right at the corner of the property up there, up Mike. So that's where the array is going to sit.
Okay, so back on towards this end of the property versus the far end.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be yeah, within the existing field for the majority of the panels. And obviously you can see if you look at, you know, on Mike's on the left hand side of Mike's screen, the two adjacent parcels with the body workshop. There's going to be a little bit, you know, above them. You'll see some panels up that in that area, and then like I said, a little bit up in the north in the treed lot.
I assume that location A keeps you close to the interconnect and B gives you the best sun.
Yes, with a priority on the interconnection point, with that minor area of tree clearing, our access to the sun remains relatively consistent throughout the parcel. But just to give you, if I may, I also want to give you a visual representation of what one of these looks like as they're being installed.
Sure.
This is a project we did in Saratoga County, New York. It's one of our first that was completed, and actually one of the first in the state for a community solar project at this scale, at the 5 megawatt size. So this was a project we did in Saratoga County. This is an in-progress photo. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can get an idea of the scale. Here would be a typical skid steer or a service van in comparison to the size of these racks. So this project on Mead Road would have approximately 1,100 racks, and that a rack is, and I'm going to zoom in on this. If you can see this dividing line here, this rectangle here consisting of approximately 30 or so panels is considered a rack. Those racks are then connected together, and then those all go to combiner boxes and then inverters that inverts the energy from DC, received from the sun, to AC that's going to the utility grid. And that gets powered through a transformer out to the existing distribution network. Same lines that deliver energy to your homes or your businesses are what we're connecting to with this project.
How many panels are in a rack again?
About 30.
Okay. so
Roughly 30. I do want to keep that open because it does vary by the selection of the rack, and those can be shortened to accept different terrains. For instance, we might break them up into smaller racks to take on more steep topography rather than one long rack where grading may be required. So if you can think of these as a modular system, we can break them out to a certain extent and use their modular system to adapt to existing terrain. I have another photo I'd like to share that's useful to see kind of how these are installed in the low disturbance. So this is an installation right after the racking went in. You can see that the earth is really not that disturbed. We try not to rough up the existing terrain very much during our installation process. These are the panels. We spread them out throughout the field as the racking gets installed. And then crews will come in and take from these pallets and actually install on the racks themselves. And then approximately, this one happens to be a few months after construction. I want to show you what it looks like when it's finished. This was the project when it was done.
Wow.
It kind of grows in pretty nice. And I wanted to show you a close-up. Sorry, I'm just looking for that. You can see the vegetation grows back in pretty well. We would also reseed where necessary. It's likely that during the construction process, there will be disturbed areas from the vehicle traffic. We would restore those prior to leaving the site. This is the end product. Something very similar to the existing terrain and ground cover, I would like to talk about maintenance for a moment. These are once installed, relatively low maintenance. We visit them a few times a year for an annual inspection, and then periodically if needed to address any concerns. So all of these systems don't have any structures associated with them other than the racks and the electrical interconnect equipment. We monitor these off-site remotely, including here in our office in Latham, as well as the system owner would monitor this from their remote office as well. And what that allows us to do by monitoring it remotely is if we see it come offline or it shuts down altogether, or we see a significant loss of production that doesn't really correlate with the weather we're seeing at the moment, it would allow us to roll a truck and inspect what's going on the property.
What about maintenance as far as mowing and?
So for mowing, we typically keep it around this height. It might get a little taller. So usually in this area, we're looking at 3 to 4 times a year at most for our mowing activities. Right now, that's primarily done with a brush hog. I know a lot of people are interested in how sheep or other animals may participate in actually grazing this area. That's not something our company is currently focused on. I think it's a great idea, but its effectiveness isn't quite there for us, and it's more commonly done with a brush hog. And right now, that's our aim to do during our maintenance plan.
Is that somebody local to the brush hogging?
We'd like to. We'd like to work with somebody as local as possible. It's the most cost effective for us. It also allows us to generate more long-term jobs in the community. And that goes for construction as well. Depending on the available labor pool and their credentials, their capabilities, there's likely an opportunity for local contractors to work on some of these projects, and particularly this installation. I do want to say that it is dependent on their ability to execute on those jobs and their experience. But there's certainly opportunity for the maintenance in terms of lawn maintenance and snow plowing as well.
I was gonna say, how do you deal with ice and snow?
So for these projects, we mainly look at snow removal for access. And so we would plow the access road regularly up to the equipment pad. In New York State, for us, it doesn't make a lot of sense to actually remove the snow. During a typical snowfall, within a day or two after that snowfall, you'll see the panels actually shed snow. The technology we're proposing here is fixed tilt. So the panels are going to be just as you see them here. They're going to be fixed all times of the year, every day at approximately 25 degrees. And being glass, the panels themselves, throughout the day with a heavy snowfall, some light will get through. It actually allows a thin layer of water to develop between the snow and the panels, and eventually they will slide off. That is not immediate, and we plan for that brief loss of production in our annual production estimates. So you may see some projects in the future actually look to remove snow actively from the arrays. For us, at this current time, it doesn't make a lot of sense for us to do that economically. It's a large effort, and the frequency is unknown. You don't know when you're going to get a snowfall that's going to slide off easily, or if you're going to get buried.
Right. And somebody standing by with a snow broom.
That's the problem. That's the big
Yeah.
problem.
So for us, we kind of leave them be and calculate for that expected snow loss based on historical weather data over the course of a year.
Is there any lighting or signage?
So signage as required by the National Electric Code or your town code. We do not have any advertisement signs, and we do not have any lighting. When these systems they're offline at night, so we have no need to visit these facilities at night. All of our activities are done during the daytime, short of a few indicator lights on some of the equipment that you will not be able to see outside the fenced area. There is no site lighting proposed on these projects.
We don't have to worry about a dark sky.
Yeah, exactly.
And what is the signage?
Well, so typically that is a warning sign or a high voltage sign around certain areas of the perimeter fence, and then also at the gate, an emergency access number, should that be necessary for contact throughout the system's life.
Will the entire project be fenced?
The entire project will be fenced. It's actually a requirement of the National Electric Code for us to have this as a secure facility. So what you see here on this fence will be surrounding the entire facility with an access gate near the access road as you approach the equipment pads.
And will there be any glare off the panels?
We do not anticipate any glare off of the panels. Generally, these are designed to absorb as much light as possible. These panels in particular have an anti-reflective coating. So this particular array, we do not anticipate any glare from.
So we had an ice storm here about 22 or so years ago that created havoc. How would the panels do in that situation, you think?
So we have a lot of these installed throughout the Northeast. My company in particular has some projects in Massachusetts as well that experience a lot of snowfall. We've seen a lot of ice storms. I can't speak to the severity of what you may see out here. This would be our first project in Canton. And I haven't actually experienced a winter in Canton yet, but I understand that they can get pretty severe at times. These would hold up generally to any weather condition. They're designed to be outside for up to 40 years or more. If damage were to occur, we have, number one, insurance if that was necessary, but also we have maintenance staff that would come out and make repairs to the system as needed. They are designed to the snow and wind loads for the area. Each racking is, and that would come with our building permit would be accompanied by a stamped racking plan specific to this structure designed for the site, as well as the racking calculations.
Yeah. The visual about that?
Does your monitoring allow you to see like if 3 racks have failed because of heavy ice or whatever?
Yes and no. So we do install a camera or 2 on this property. They would be generally located in the center of this equipment pad, and they would be pan, zoom, and tilt. What that allows us to do is actually zoom in, we can pan around, and that would help us identify issues. We probably couldn't see, on the very outskirts of the array if there was a small indication of some bending in the rack or something along the lines of that. But anything severe, like a collapsed rack or missing modules, would be evident, and we would then roll a truck. But otherwise, we have the mowing events and also our annual visit that a full walkover would be performed, and items like that would be caught.
Mike, can I ask a question or two?
Of course,
Absolutely.
please.
This
Hi,
is
hi,
Bob.
fellas. My name is Bob Washoe. I'm on the town board and just so happen to be moderating the meeting tonight for the Zoom call. Welcome to Canton.
Thank you.
Couple of things I noticed just on this map here. One is the wetlands as part of that. Are those federal wetlands and what's your plan for those? And then I noticed the driveway along the interior property where the Rose's house is. There's another little wetland there. And you actually show your driveway going on the Rose's property, is the way it looks to me. And so I'm just curious how all that comes together.
Yeah, I can speak to the wetlands portion. So those are federal wetlands that they have jurisdiction over there. We had our ecologists walk the site. That's where the delineation you're seeing right there is. That's where we have established a boundary. From our experience and from projects of this nature and in the area, the Corps does not consider the types of piles, the driven piles, the screw piles that these racks would be established on. They are not considered to be a disturbance in a federally established wetland. And as you can see from Mike's pictures I showed, the type of disturbance that you would get from these type of racking systems is very minor. So the Corps does not see these as a disturbance. So that's why you can see within the wetlands to the south, I guess southwest corner of the site there, we do have some racks within that wetlands, but that we have experienced before that is an allowed activity for a federal wetland.
And does the DEC have oversight over that as well, or is that just U.S. Fish and Wildlife or something?
Yeah, this is just the Corps. This is
Army
this
Corps.
Yep, this is Army Corps. Yep, that's
Yeah.
correct.
And then how about the driveway there?
Yeah, the driveway. So that would be considered disturbance. That's a fill activity in a federal wetland. So that's obviously why you can see that we're kind of bending away from that wetland there at the corner of the Rose property, and then we make our access further up in their site, and then we turn into the interior of our property.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. I saw these maps a while ago, about a week or so ago. Mike shared them with me, and because I've been following solar on behalf of the town for other projects and some other larger projects in the pipeline. So I've been just trying to get up to speed on all this stuff. And I did take the time to talk with Patrick Ames. He's the executive director, and you might want to get his name. He's the executive director at Cornell Cooperative Extension.
Okay.
Because when I looked at the DANK maps, and I don't know, are you guys familiar with that mapping system, Development Authority of Northern New York?
Yes.
It has all the tax parcels on there, and you might find it helpful. But so Cooperative Extensions owns both sides of the driveway, and I think it's probably important to differentiate between the Mead Road and this driveway. And you may want to do some more homework on that, because Patrick shared with me that driveway's deed is owned by Cooperative Extension, or the state of New York, if you will, and that the right of ways that are there currently have been grandfathered in, and he wasn't aware of any other language in their deed that allowed otherwise access to this property. So I strongly suggest that you survey and maybe do a deed search and everything to make sure that you're all on the same page, because I think the neighbors are maybe under a different impression.
Thank you. We'll certainly look into that. As far as any deeded access, if that is historically deeded to the owner of this property, I just want to be clear that we're leasing this land from Mr. Brewer. We do not own this, so we'd be doing this under a land lease, utilizing his existing access if that was allowed.
Yeah.
So that's our current plan, but we'll absolutely look into that and contact Mr. Ames.
Yeah, my guess is that, the roses were fine in Cooperative Extension with a tractor going down there in the spring and fall for harvest and things like that. And nobody said anything, because folks tend to cooperate up here in that realm. But, this is a larger project. And so I don't, something like this obviously is not going to go unnoticed. And I suggest to reach out to them, or have the owner reach out to them. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for the recommendation, and we're absolutely going to do that and talk to the adjacent landowner regarding that use. Post-construction, which typically on a project like this, we're talking 4 to 6 months at most, with varying levels of activity throughout that duration. But post-construction, we're visiting this a few times a year. One important highlight, this is for commercial activity. It's relatively low disturbance. There's no noise generated by these outside the fenced area. They're going to be silent. They don't use any power, more resources from the grid. They actually do the opposite. They won't increase any traffic to the road system outside of the construction period. So they generally make good neighbors.
Sure. Yeah, and I don't think it's the town's position to micromanage that. I think if you have the proper right of ways and the proper access with regard to the property owners, that's what the town requires. So, thank you.
Thank you. We'll make sure we demonstrate that.
Providing everything goes well on the fencing along both sides of the Roses property, would you be willing to put like some screen type fencing there?
Specifically with these corners?
Right.
That is something that we would consider, yes.
Okay. In case they ask, I'm
Yep.
sure they don't want to look at the solar panels.
So we would certainly consider that and have that discussion with them if they were requesting that.
What about decommissioning?
It's got a whole plan.
Decommissioning. Bill, were you able to talk to Mike about the decommissioning?
Yep.
Yes.
So I had a chance to read your solar law and also our decommissioning plan that we presented. I think a couple of items need to be updated in there, which we are going to do and resubmit to the board. And we would plan to provide some financial surety prior to the building permit, as your law requires.
Okay, perfect.
Some of the major items I saw in there is we have to update some of the existing site condition photos. Obviously, would have to be provided prior to any construction. All of which I think can be addressed and provided to you should you grant approval before any building permit or before we proceeded to that.
Yeah, I don't think there was much in the way of difference between your proposal and the law that we've drafted recently. Other than the biggest one being it has to be in place at the start of the project.
Yep. So just a little background on our position on that. Once these are constructed, they're designed to operate for a minimum of 25 to 40 years. So that's why we propose funding towards the end of the system's life, because it's highly unlikely that this would ever go out of operation prior to that time. Even if the
Right.
company were to default, there would be a new owner to pick it up because it's a long-term generating asset with guaranteed revenue for that 25-year period.
Right. Questions?
Yeah, part of our law is that there should be a community benefit to this project. And there's an agreement negotiated between the town and the developer, the owner. Has that been done?
Bob? Bob, do you want to chime in on that? I don't think the town is going to require this because
We
it's.
do, we do have language in our law, referring to community benefit agreements and/or pilots. And, I think, the town is very much interested in community solar projects, where there's, tangible benefit here locally with folks being able to subscribe, but just the same, this is, solar is new to us. I mean, we've been through, solarized Canton campaigns and have residential campaigns, and we've had some light commercial activity, but this is really outside the village array. This is gonna be the largest array in the township. So this is new to us.
That
And I
benefit
guess
could
what I would
be-
ask you, what is your
aside for-
experience with community benefit agreements in the other municipalities you've already worked with?
You have to buy in, right? So we could, hey, Bob?
Were you
We-
able to hear me? Michael?
Yeah, we could, well, to stick with the letter of the law, we could ask something along the lines that a certain percentage of the credits are available first to Canton residents.
So I'd like to speak to both of those points.
Okay.
To start, I was able to hear that comment. Our most common form of community benefits typically has been historically from a pilot. We're happy to discuss that further with the town board and making sure that we provide that community benefit to your satisfaction. I think that we'd have to discuss that further. We typically like to wait until a project is approaching your approval or as a condition of the final approval to know that we actually have a real project we're discussing. In this case, I appreciate that you guys are interested in community solar and hosting these in your town. I appreciate that. And we'd like to work with you to formalize that community benefit.
And I'd say likewise, Michael, with the, that's the town's take too. We don't want to rush that conversation. We want to make sure you guys have an actual project before we spend a lot of time on it and waste your time or our time on that conversation. So, yeah, I think once you get some of the questions that arose tonight and the county may have, I think that there'll be time that, folks from your outfit and the town would sit down and have that discussion about what's the direction we would go in.
Sounds good. And we welcome that discussion as soon as you saw fit. And typically that has been for us as a condition of site plan approval or as we approach that site plan approval for the project.
Yeah, I mean, with this as the opening salvo for the project, we'll let this go through, but, so, but what you would just go back to what you had said. You said your experiences with pilots, not necessarily community benefit agreements, correct?
That's correct, but we're seeing more and more of the community benefit, and we're open to that discussion.
Good
And I think that's something
to
we
know.
consider.
And I think at some point after this meeting, I'll probably be reaching out to you on behalf of the town board, probably to set up a conversation or a meeting at some point.
That would be great. As soon as you feel it's worthwhile, we'd like to start that conversation. I think we're
Okay.
at the point now where we know our project specifics. And granted, we have not heard the public comment, the county comment, but I think we're at a point where we can at least schedule an initial discussion and see what your thoughts are.
Sure. Yeah, Rome wasn't built in a day. I'm sure it'll take a few conversations.
Yeah,
Right.
and we welcome those. Yep. And then as far as the energy for the community, I just wanted to jump in, Mike, and say that one thing that we've offered in previous communities is an exclusivity period. Upon completing the system, the last one we did was in Saratoga County, the town of Clifton Park. We opened a 30-day exclusivity period for sign up of residents only before we took on outside customers.
I like that.
Yeah, that's, I mean, the community benefit is
I
wide
did-
open.
Go ahead, sorry.
We also, just the history is this board, to keep it clean, has deferred to the town board to negotiate that community benefit so that we just deal with the project itself. And we have a whole separate entity dealing with the community benefit, so that we don't look like we're making a backdoor deal.
Commend you on that. A lot of boards find that hard to separate from the planning process, but they are two distinct items and they should be discussed separately.
I just have one more practical question on the interconnect. For the 5 meg system, you only need two-phase power on the Mead Road to connect, or is there 3-phase out there?
There is 3-phase. So we're connecting at 13.2 kV, which is the existing primary voltage of that circuit on Mead.
Okay. Okay.
And before we approached the board on this particular project, we spent some time with National Grid, approximately 6 months, doing a detailed study of this system, the impacts to their existing grid. They ultimately came back with a document we provided in our supporting documents to the town, showing that this is approved. Of course, with upgrades, there will be necessary protection upgrades we need to make to ensure that they can trip our system offline if necessary, or that in the event of a grid failure, that our system goes offline so they can safely work on repairs.
Bob, do you know if, or Jeff, do you know if Eric was sent the whole copy also?
I did forward it to him over the weekend, Mike.
Okay, I was not able to connect with him today. I was talking about our town attorney. Although I don't know that there was much of a need for a conversation between he and I at the moment. He's had a chance to review everything. I'll try to touch base with him tomorrow. I'm sure there'll be some questions further on here, but if you could amend that project with the decommissioning and anything else we discussed tonight, our plan would be to send that off to the planning board from here, the county planning board from here, before we have our next meeting. And we would want to get that in their hands, Jeff, by early next week at the latest.
If you want to go for the November 12th, pretty much the end of this week.
Okay,
We could probably get into the next week, but they can't guarantee that you will get a spot on that November 12th meeting.
okay.
Yeah, we'll strive to get you by the end of the week. We would love to be on their review for November and get their feedback. If we can continue to satisfy the board's requests and demonstrate our site control and access, it'll be our objective to attain approval for this by the end of the year, so we can confidently plan on construction for as soon as weather would allow.
Okay, so the process is hopefully goes to the county planning board from here. We hold an official site plan review in November, if all is well, and the county doesn't have too many objections. Public hearing in September or December, which puts them in construction in January if they're able. It keeps them in line with NYSERDA money. It's an ambitious timeline, but that's what we're looking for. Hopefully we can make it. No guarantees for anybody, but that's what we'd be shooting for. So the county will come back with 2 pages of recommendations, I would guarantee you, which we have dealt with before. No, I don't see major hurdles here. I mean, it's a well laid out plan, low impact. It's pretty well hidden other than from the roses or Wayne Strip mowing his back 40.
Well, thank you. If I may ask, how do you typically treat seeker? Would you be able to circulate to the involved agencies tonight?
Yeah, the seeker could go to the county with your application, reviewed or renewed application. But actually, we would just send them everything, you know. I just forward the link that we have. I think that Bill provided, which had all the documents, which I started to print the other night till I found out one of them was like 200 pages long. Said my poor home printer's not going to take that. I would highly recommend we do. It's the size of the project. It's new. It's solar. I don't know that it has to by our, you know, because it's not on a county road. It's not on a state highway. My comfort level, I would want it to. Yeah. I mean, the county was highly instrumental in helping us develop our laws. It was anyway. And this may be one of the first projects for all of us. I'd kind of like them to have eyes on it, personally.
We would love to be the first company to bring one of these projects to your community if you're willing to host it.
If this goes well, you'll bring a second one, right?
Yeah, and a third.
And you already got some land?
Can
Um,
is it all right for me to call them tomorrow, email them the county planning board application? They could get me the check and everything, and then maybe another packet that I could give to them, or I could give them just a link and they can pick that up.
You
themselves?
should be able to just give them the link. I would assume, Bill, that you could put the corrected version of the with the decommissioning plan in the link, just replace that and we can send them the link.
Yes.
There will be, there is a fee. I don't know what it is.
I don't know. I can find that out tomorrow morning. I could email them the application, they could fill it out and send it right back to me after I've talked to the film to find out what the cost.
Okay. Yeah.
That way I can sure I have everything ready for them for the November 12th meeting.
Okay. Who would like to get that email?
You can send it to Bill and myself, and we're happy to process that.
You have both their emails, Bill? Okay.
What's the amendment to the decommissioning plan?
Michael or William, can I ask how you guys landed on coming to Canton for your next
The
project?
decommissioning plan started 15 years into the project.
So this particular parcel actually came to us. There was interest from the landowner.
On Monday, so that they were aware that this board would probably know what that.
We would love to look at other interested landowners' properties that may want to host these. One of the best things we can ask for is a willing landowner to host one of these facilities. And then also a supportive community that we can go present this project to and ultimately have that accepted to them.
Yeah, I think that, there's a lot of people with land up here, and solar solicitations are almost as prevalent as political stuff in your mailbox at some point. But you're saying this was a local person that reached out to you and found you?
That's generally how most of our landowners come to us. I was not specifically involved in this transaction, so I can't say for certain that that's how we came across this parcel, but generally that's how we get most of our leads are inbound through our website, and most of our awareness is raised through the other projects in additional communities and social media advertising as well. You might see us on Facebook from time to time.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. And if anybody is interested, I encourage them to visit our website, uslightenergy.com. There's a ton of more information on community solar and how you sign up. There actually is a link to sign up to participate in the energy. You don't have to wait for this array to come online. If you want to participate now, that is available immediately. There's also some links to some videos describing our process a little bit and how we go about developing these projects.
Good. Questions from the board?
I do want to just add something because it seems like there's some other interests in the area. I would say that utility infrastructure is one of the most necessary items to make this project successful, or a project like this successful. And those are somewhat limited from town to town. In this particular town, on this substation we're connecting to, there's probably a maximum of 4 to 5 of these projects that could connect. And after that, the upgrades required to that system to connect these are substantial. So just to give you an idea of how many might come into a township, it's based on the utility infrastructure, but generally in this particular location, that's 4 to 5 of these.
For the one substation you're hooking up to or for the grid?
For the one substation on this grid and this particular project site with this infrastructure and the surrounding infrastructure. Not to say that there's not other substations in the area. I mostly just wanted to say that it sounds like there's some interest in the area. We're happy to look at any projects, sites that anyone would like to bring to us.
Yeah, I could see where that would be the major hiccup is getting to the power. Okay. More? Anything? We need a date for next month. November, it's Thanksgiving. Is Thanksgiving week out? We're gonna hear the county board is gonna meet on the 12th. Presumably, we would hear by the 13th or the 16th. We could do that week. Or the 24th, which is Thanksgiving week. Going anywhere? Can't travel, can't go anywhere. Consensus, 24th? Week before, 17th? Okay. 17th work for you guys?
Yep.
Okay. 6:30 is good. Gets us out earlier. Barring any major hiccups, if the county board for some reason doesn't get any information back to us by 6:30 on the 17th, we might have to postpone. I'm confident that past history is that they'll have something back to us Friday afternoon or Monday morning.
Understood. Mike, if I may ask, do you consider our application complete at this point?
I do, yes.
Yep.
Yep.
And I
Right, other than the amendment for the decommissioning.
which we can follow up with this week. On that.
Yeah,
I'll get
if
that.
you just, yeah, if you could just put that in the link if you would, and Jeff could send that over to the county tomorrow. Just, you guys can communicate when it's ready and he can send it over.
Okay. And then as far as the seeker process go, do you intend to act as lead agency?
They should be able to overnight that,
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. You can communicate with them tomorrow.
You guys can have those. I'll send the link right to the school to still get all that information.
Yeah, the only thing that you'll be waiting on is the check from,
Yep,
Yeah.
tomorrow, I can have everything else ready. Once I get the check, I can send it in.
Yep.
Because I've got another one going tomorrow too, so.
okay. As to your question, we would be the lead agency. So everything's in-house here.
Great.
I did take a stroll through that. It looked okay, it looked good to me. Your stormwater prevention plan was honestly too much to read the other night.
That was the 121 pages.
No, yeah. My eyes started glazing over and I said, this is perfect. I'm going to read it at bedtime. John, anything? Joel, Siggy, Deb? Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you guys hosting us tonight and setting it up virtual.
Yeah, much appreciated, gentlemen.
Yeah, you're welcome to virtual again next month. It's actually a little bit easier for us in this room. We don't have to go downstairs.
Okay, we welcome that. For the public hearing, whenever that's set, I'd love to attend in person if you're having that. If not, we can hold it virtual again.
Yep, I mean, we're happy to have you here. That'll be in December and that will probably force us downstairs anyway, so we wouldn't be able, we could still Zoom it for those who can attend.
Sounds good. Thank you very much
Okay.
for your time and
All
your
right.
consideration of our project.
All right, thank you. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Thanks, Bob. I think Bob's gone. Bob gone? Bob's gone. All right, accept.
So all I need is
I'm
one-
still here
All right,
I'm still here.
we're done. Thank you.
and we're still recording.
Okay. Nobody's on, so I turned the screen off.
That's fine. I think by open meetings law, Mike, once we start zooming, we need to keep the meeting going via Zoom, whether there's people on it or not. So.
Oh, that's
I'll just-
fine. That's
I'll
fine.
just keep it going and kill it at the end.
Okay. Our next project, Jeff, you want to give us a little introduction?
The project is going on County Route 14 for Brentwood Falls. Josh Gilson has 41 acres. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, Henry. And they were looking to put in approximate size. They're going to use up 18 acres for a 3,000 or 3 megawatt project
Mhm.
at 991 County Route 14. That's pretty much all that I know about this one. I've
18,
got Henry right here. He works for Josh.
18 acres. I guess the first question is, what's the power for Henry? I mean, where's the power going?
The net credit system?
Josh, you're looking at that credit system. What he wanted to do, and again, I knew what this is trying to help Josh out. And I've been doing a little studying on this for the last month or so. And I understood a lot of the stuff that he was talking about. And I spoke with Jason from the county,
Fulton Howard, yep.
No,
Jason the other day, and I was asking if they had to be, you folks were talking about the county earlier. And obviously that's a county road there. He was telling me that if our project was 500 feet, within 500 foot of the county road, that obviously the county would have to be involved in it. We're just in the early stages of this, folks. I wish Josh was here today. He's got a company called Tradesman's Contracting. He does, he subcontracts with Spectrum, so they do a lot of overhead and underground, and he's been splicing at nights lately because obviously New York State is trying to get all these communications to all these homes now because of everybody doing, a lot of schooling and stuff from home. So he's been very busy, and I apologize for that. And I wish that Josh was here. But we're in the early stages of it, obviously. And hooking up to the power company is one of the biggest steps that we are just starting to get into. We just wanted to let you folks kind of know where we're located and kind of let you know what we're looking at possibly trying to do. And that's basically why I came in, and Jeff was telling me that these folks are coming in. I looked at some of these projects. I stopped down and looked at the one at the village. I believe the village did down here, am I correct? Yep. The village did down here, the one that Clarkson had done, so on and so forth. I mean, a couple of years ago, I put a little solar project in at my camp, at my hunting camp. So I kind of, 4 panels, the inverter, and so on. So obviously, I know these projects are a lot bigger. Josh also owns some land in the town of Luray, like 130 acres. And right next door to this project in Philadelphia right now, they're doing a solar array right there. I don't know if anybody's seen that right on Route 11 before you come into the array on the right hand side.
Mhm.
His land is just right on the other side of that. So kind of would like to try to get started on this smaller project before you got into the bigger one. That one he's hoping would be big enough where he could sell right directly to the power company, where you wouldn't have to do like the community, like these folks here are looking at here doing, I believe, where they sell the power goes to the power company, and then they sell back to the community, like the
share,
folks are
yeah.
talking about.
That's a net credit system.
I
As
believe
opposed,
that- I believe that we would have to do the same thing with this 3 and 3.5 megawatt system also. I thought when I spoke with Josh, I thought we should get hooked up with a company like these folks here, and I've written down a lot of their information tonight, so that I will contact them, so on and so forth. Josh has his own construction crew, so on and so forth. So he was stating that if we did something like that with another company, he would like to, because he wants to keep his men working, which I understand that, where they could actually build the arrays. He has the equipment to do that.
Well, he said basically that he was also
Yeah.
looking to
Mhm.
align with local.
Yeah, I learned a lot from this little, I'm glad that Jeff had me come in today, because I've learned a lot doing some research into it in the last month or so. But that's just something that we're obviously, we're in the early stages of this. Want to let you folks know till we get into, I see that the planning obviously is the next move, come in with something like that,
Mm,
showing you folks,
mhm.
there's a map. I don't know. I just made this up here. I mean, this little like proposal. And I'll give you folks this one too. That's the map of the property. And it's right behind where his shop is, on 14, so the access and everything is right on his
What's the
property.
name of County Route 14? What's the name?
Mhm.
The Rensselaer Falls Road right off.
Yeah.
68.
Josh is down there approximately, I don't know, 2.5, 3 miles on the right-hand side. That's where his shop is, where all his trucks are, you see all that big schools down
Right,
there.
yeah.
And it's right in behind there, right off the road, and again, it's out of sight, out of mind.
But the key is going to be setting up, your interface with, the
That
national
is gonna
grid
be
and
our key,
whatever.
our key
you
is gonna be-
obviously-
It's gonna be getting on the queue with the power company, because obviously we have to.
Because you don't,
get
I
rid
mean,
of our power yet.
How far along are you in the discussions with Grid?
I have just, actually, Josh has spoken to a couple people just recently, but we're, like this gentleman just said, he said he was like 6 months.
Yeah,
Talk to him, so, I mean, obviously, this is gonna be a later next year plan, but I just,
Mhm.
when we spoke to Jeff about it, we just wanted to make sure, and obviously I see that you folks do like to see the solar, which is nice. I mean, obviously, that's what we're doing also, and,
yeah, I would suggest, you'll probably need a little bit of help later on in the process. That I believe would trigger a full seeker, touching 18 acres of land. So that gets a little bit complicated if you've never done a full seeker. Probably want to have somebody do it for you, engineering firm. Because you're gonna want to answer.
We're gonna have to meet with Carl, and we'll try to meet with Carl, I spoke to the gal in Bearsville too, that's supposed to be, nice certified also, for,
Is there NYSERDA funding involved?
well, that's what we're gonna try to look into also.
Yeah, because there's typically deadlines for that.
And the more they've
There's a
done, the
deadline
more
at the
they-
end of this year. There may be new money at the beginning of the year, but yeah, certainly you need a conversation with them. I don't know what's out there for National Grid. You certainly need a conversation with them, because if you can't get the power out, then the project doesn't even start. I mean, that's your first conversation.
Substation there is the McAdoo substation.
McAdoo, yeah.
And he's been talking to a couple of people about that, about the substation. Obviously, I believe Corning's got their own like little substation there too, as far as power goes. So we're kind of looking into that also.
Right,
as far as the future
right.
goes. I mean, we're a ways in our project. I didn't mean to hold you folks up tonight.
No,
I
just
appreciate your time.
want to make sure you're going in the right direction also.
Thank you.
We would not be opposed to another project at all.
I guess that's it for me, folks. I don't hold you folks up any longer.
All right.
I don't know if we're getting snowed in or not.
Thank you for coming in. Yeah, Jeff can help you out with anything you need. Feel free to. There you go. All right, take care. The battery energy storage law has not been passed by the town. Probably won't be until March or so. They did another moratorium just recently. It's not going to impact the project we're looking at right now. So for us, there's no hurry.
Well, that was the deal with him. I mean, you don't you want a net credit system.
Right,
You don't want a storage system. That's a whole other.
I'll try to get a hold of the town attorney tomorrow, but I don't know. Bob, you can chime in anytime. I don't know that there's any hiccups in the law as we wrote it.
No, Eric did have a couple of things he wanted to discuss with us. Namely, whether or not we wanted to have language in there that addressed residential batteries. Right now, we don't regulate those, and he was curious whether or not we really wanted to go down that road, and if we wanted to limit it to just utility scale projects. I think it's a valid question. The board just hasn't had a chance to discuss it yet.
Yeah, my only, I guess, comment to that is, we don't basically regulate residential solar at all. Do we want to regulate one aspect of it?
Well, I guess, we do in that they need, we do in that they need to come in for a permit for it, but right now,
Right,
somebody
right.
wants to put on their cabin 4 panels and 4 batteries in their cabin, they, hopefully get a permit and they just do it and it's not an issue.
Right.
I think Eric thought that the language in the law made them now subject to it. And he thought maybe we wanted to just make sure we were clear that we weren't trying to regulate those small off-grid systems like that.
Okay, that makes sense because, we don't want to put something in the law that triggers them to come to this board if they don't need to.
Yeah, Jeff already has enough work to do. He probably can't hear me.
Well, he can hear you.
Oh, he can hear you. Yeah.
Other news, I think the large project that was being planned is probably even a couple more years away from even beginning. The Smart Path is well behind schedule. I don't know how this has impacted that project or the financing for that project, but yeah, and even though our involvement will be limited, I don't think we're going to see that project for a couple of years. Yeah, the larger one that was going over an Old State Road and Route 11. And
Yeah.
other than that, I have nothing new. Ziggy, you have a request?
Data like this to share with us. If we could just know about it ahead of time, I would come in and get it.
Did I not send you the link on that email? There was a link for all of that.
I don't think it's
No,
so.
I couldn't do it.
Okay, I'm sorry
All I
about that.
got was the letter.
But you had hard copies here, and if I need a hard copy.
I thought I had copied you all in on the email with the link to all of this. I'm sorry, my fault.
Pages, we have them here in hard copy, I prefer the hard copy.
Okay, yeah,
And I'd come in
Yeah.
and get it.
we actually just got these today. Yeah. You weren't because I honestly didn't read it. I just read the application and the seeker and the supporting. It's,
Yeah.
it's a lot to slog through, and that's why we want to let the county look at it, like gives us time to digest it by next month. We'll
They're always good. No,
Well,
no.
certainly
Sometimes.
we'll certainly have time to address it a little better and have more questions. And, you know, you always want to ask intelligent questions.
But it's interesting to see what's happening in that credit concept and how,
It is, it is.
because that's what we have, and that's the only reason I was willing to do it, was because it was a net credit system.
Right.
Because I would not deal with batteries, I would not deal with anything. And
Mhm.
I have to say, we're what, 4 years into it, and it's been very good.
Good.
Very good. And ice and snow do not fall off. No, they don't. I can tell you that. From experience. It depends, John. You know, sometimes if the sun, you know, we get a sunny day, I would say 2 or 3 days sometimes. And if we've got really the bad crusty ice, and then all of a sudden it comes off in sheets. And so they're like, oh yeah, it's interesting.
You don't go out with a snow broom?
Yeah. I have a shed. I have 93 panels.
Wow, you've got a
And-
big system.
Yeah, and it's on it's on a shed. So we actually built the shed to hold the panels and stuff. So, yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah,
The ice stands on our.
mine does. But, you know, Waterman Hill is a strange environment. You know, it's like
It's different up
between
there.
the wind and, yeah, I mean, it's really.
Oh, you meant the weather. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
All right, nobody has anything?
Hooray.
Motion? Motion second? We are adjourned.
Yay.
Thanks,
Stop
Bob.
the recording.